Awoken by the pleas of a mysterious girl, Link is told by his uncle to remain inside while he investigates Hyrule Castle. Concerned for his uncle's safety, Link grabs a lantern heading out into the rainstorm. Unsure what this all means, Link arrives at the front gate, but is then told off by the guards. However, determined to answer the girl named Zelda's plea, he discovers a secret entrance on the east side of the castle. Heading down, Link unfortunately finds his uncle mortally wounded. In his last moment, he teaches Link the ancient Hylian move, the spin attack. Before passing away, his final request is for Link to save Princess Zelda. Before he can finish his sentence, he succumbs to his wound, passing away before Link's eyes. Therefore, with Zelda's destiny in Link's hands, Link begins traversing the sewers of Hyrule Castle and battles his way through the castle's depths using the powerful spin attack and pots galore. Eventually, Link manages to exit the sewers to the courtyard where he formally enters Hyrule Castle. Hyrule Castle is the home of the royal family, standing proudly in the center of the kingdom. However, tonight a dark cloud hangs over the castle. Link manages to find the castle's dungeon, with Zelda's cell guarded by a powerful knight. Defeating the knight, Link unlocks Zelda's cell, freeing the princess. Zelda explains that before her imprisonment, Agonim, a wizard in service to the royal family, secretly began kidnapping young maidens, sacrificing them to break the Wise Men's seal. 4 generations ago, the Kingdom of Hyrule fought in the Imprisoning War. It began when evil forces invaded from the Golden Land. Hyrule was led by the Guardian Knights, who fought off the enemy, giving the Wise Men enough time to seal the Golden Land. The Golden Land is where the omnipresent and omnipowerful Golden Power is located, set to grant a wish to the one who possesses it. In the present day, Agonim conveniently arrives in Hyrule in a time when the kingdom was in great turmoil. There he conspired to betray the king and uses magic to brainwash the castle soldiers. Zelda, being one of the Wise Men's descendants, was to be the final sacrifice until Link's arrival upended Agonim's plan. You could say destiny is at work here. With not much time, Zelda instructs Link to take her to the throne room where a secret passage is hidden. The secret passage Zelda speaks of leads directly to the sanctuary where a loyal sage awaits their arrival. However, it wouldn't be a simple journey as the passage was dark and filled with danger. This wouldn't stop Link as he was able to use the lamp to safely escort Zelda to the sanctuary. With Zelda now safe, Link is tasked to find the wise Sahasrara, claim the Master Sword, and save Hyrule from the wizard's evil clutches. To state this right now, A Link to the Past intro is one of the best openings in all of gaming history. It not only is a great tutorial, it is a masterclass in opening a story, with Zelda's plea for help, the death of Link's uncle, and Agonim's plot to break the Wise Man's seal. A perfect way to begin Link's adventure. The next dungeon is the Eastern Palace. With Zelda safe at the sanctuary, Link ventures to Kakariko Village to meet Sahasrara as he holds more information about the Master Sword. In his search for the Elder's grandson reveals that Sahasrara is hiding by the Eastern Palace. Unlike the quaint Kakariko Village, the Eastern Palace is scattered ruins built to store ancient Hylian artifacts, with the Armos statues built to serve as its guardians. Even the dungeon's boss is 6 giant Armos Knights. Simultaneously, the ruins are filled with what appears to be giant head-shaped owl statues. In certain Zelda games, owls would often appear as guiding spirits or givers of wisdom. This is most likely a reference to the goddess Athena. In Greek mythology, she is often represented or accompanied by an owl, popularizing owls as being symbols of wisdom and knowledge across the world. Combined with Zelda being the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, alongside bearing the Triforce of Wisdom, their connection is rather subtle. Following the mark on his map, Link finds a building at the bottom of a hill where inside waits Sahasrara, the name being a possible reference to the Sahasrara, one of the primary chakras in Hinduism. Or what I believe it is a reference to is the Buddhist figure Saraha, who when his name is translated means the one who has shot the arrow. If you fall off the arena in the final battle, there's a panel Link can interact with, where Sahasrara reveals Ganon's weakness to the silver arrows. Beyond that, there isn't a deeper connection besides sounding similar. Speaking to the Elder, he explains that in order to be worthy to wield the Master Sword, Link must gather the 3 pendants of virtue. It just so happens the Eastern Palace contains one of the pendants, so to test Link's readiness, Sahasrara tells Link to venture into the dungeon to obtain the first pendant. Entering the dungeon, it is like anything Link has ever seen before. The first 2 obstacles Link faces are which direction to go and rolling boulders. Further exploration rewards Link the essentials he needs in every dungeon, from the map, compass, and big key. There are even panels Link can use to communicate with Sahasrara. Being a descendant of the Wise Men, Sahasrara has trained his telepathic ability to communicate to Link whenever he needs to. Though the dungeon continues in a linear path, there are still plenty of traps, like a whole room of balls coming from all directions. At the end are the 6 Armos Knights who serve as the big boss of the Armos statues outside. Though the last statue may enter in enraged mode, Link's bow is able to penetrate their armor, therefore awarding him the first pendant. The Eastern Palace is A Link to the Past's first formal dungeon. Here, Link is formally tested by Sahasrara to see if he is truly the chosen hero who will save Hyrule from the Great Cataclysm. The Eastern Palace teaches Link, and by extension the player, the trials they'll face on their journey. By all stretch of the imagination, the Eastern Palace formally establishes progression in every subsequent Zelda game, such as visiting the town, traveling to the dungeon, and exploring its depths. Next is the Desert Palace, located in the Desert of Mystery. In the past, the desert was occupied by the Gerudo, an all-female nomadic race. In the A Link to the Past era, the Gerudo alongside the Gorons of Death Mountain and the Caesar of Zora's Waterfall no longer reside in Hyrule. So by the time Link enters the desert, all that remains are the vultures and guildmen waiting to attack those who for some reason wander in there. Interestingly, if you travel to a cave located northeast, inside is Agana, an old hermit who happens to be the brother of Sahasrara. He warns Link of the prophecy of the Great Cataclysm, telling him ahead of time to attain the Book of Madura to decipher the monolith's riddle. Earlier when Link returned with the first pendant, Sahasrara gave Link the Pegasus boots. Thanks to them, he was able to obtain the Book of Madura at the library. The book in his hand, Link translates ancient Hylian, wishing to unlock the dungeon's entrance. Though wishing is less appropriate given you can clearly see Link praying, even doing the sign of the cross, albeit incorrectly on top of that. Hyrule's language has undergone many changes over the years. The official strategy guide says it was how the ancient Hylians recorded their history, similar to hieroglyphics and Norse runes. From the start, the Desert Palace was designed more open-ended compared to the Eastern Palace. Inside were Bimo statues that would shoot their lasers if Link was in their line of sight. Analyzing the dungeon's exterior design, you can see it's modeled after the dungeon's boss, Lanmola. Maybe in the past, Lanmola would freely roam the desert, but when the Gerudo left, the Hylians moved in. They sealed it within the dungeon. Therefore, its exterior design is a warning to anyone who dares enter. Besides being aesthetically different from the Eastern Palace, its most memorable part is when Link leaves and re-enters the dungeon to progress forward. The strategy guide even states that the upper floors were built as shelters to the desert heat. While it's only a short sequence, it's one of the few times in Zelda where we re-enter a dungeon to progress forward. Lanmola is divided into 3 worms, with each worm getting progressively more aggressive. Defeating them rewards Link the second pendant. The greatest contribution the Desert Palace did to Zelda was that it broke from previous dungeon conventions. It sought to give dungeons unique identities, breaking the mold of what came previously. The next dungeon is the Tower of Hera. On his way to the dungeon, Link meets an old man lost in the tunnels. It's during their time together the old man reveals to Link that his granddaughter was one of the maidens kidnapped by Agonim, meaning like Sahasrara and Agana, he is also a descendant of the wise men. Once Link and the old man reach their destination, he imparts the magic mirror, warning that if he is to enter the tower, he must obtain the Moon Pearl. Link continues ascending the mountain until suddenly he is transported to the Dark World, with the side effect of him being transformed into a pink rabbit. By the way, when researching for this part of the video, I found an official drawing of Bunny Link, which I find very amusing that I'll put on screen now. For now, the magic mirror is able to bring Link back to the light world just outside the Tower of Hera. Situated at the top of Death Mountain, its name is a reference to the Greek goddess Hera, who in Greek mythology resides atop Mount Olympus. While we never see its true height in game, the dungeon map and official artwork show a total of 6 floors. Similar to the Desert Palace, it was built by the ancient Hylians. Death Mountain is home to the Gorons, however unlike Goron infrastructure which uses steel and metal, the Hylians use traditional brick and marble techniques. Inside, a common puzzle in this dungeon are the switches. A switch flipped on one floor has an effect on the entire dungeon, exemplified when obtaining the Moon Pearl. The Moon Pearl is, in reality, the true treasure of the Tower of Hera, able to protect the hero from the effects of the Golden Land. Since we know the Hylians had magical powers, it's safe to assume that the Moon Pearl was created using ancient techniques lost by the time of A Link to the Past. The Moon Pearl is similar in appearance to the Palantirs of Lord of the Rings. Both are found in ancient towers, but their purposes are different. At the top of the dungeon awaits the boss Moldor. If you're not careful, he can knock Link off, resetting the fight at full health. The best compliment I could give this boss is that he rewards the final pendant, paving the way to the Master Sword. What makes the Tower of Hera exceptional is that it puts puzzle solving at the forefront of its progression. From this point onwards, puzzle solving in Zelda became more entwined in a dungeon's design. With the Master Sword pulled from its pedestal, Link now has the blade to defeat Agonim. However, when he hears Zelda's cry for help, he returns to the sanctuary to find Zelda has been taken to our next dungeon, Hyrule Castle's Tower. Unlike his first visit, Link is ready to take the battle to Agonim. The tower itself serves as Agonim's dark lair, with a barrier blocking anyone from entering. However, the Master Sword with its power to destroy evil dispels the barrier. The tower is guarded by Agonim's strongest soldiers. Link is in a battle against time as Zelda is the only maiden left needed to break the Wise Men's seal. Outside Agonim's chamber, the eye on the carpet bears a striking resemblance to the Eye of Sauron, meant to represent Agonim's lidless gaze over Hyrule, stopping at nothing until the Wise Men's seal is broken. When Link manages to reach the top of the tower, he arrives at Agonim's chambers too late to prevent the sacrifice. The Wise Men's seal now broken, Agonim flees, but Link, unwilling to give up, battles Agonim for the fate of Hyrule. With the Master Sword in his hand, Agonim's attacks are continuously deflected back at him. The Master Sword, imbued with divine power to destroy evil, was forged for the chosen hero destined to save Hyrule. However, unwilling to admit defeat, the wizard sends Link along with himself into the Dark World. With Link transported into the Dark World, here is where A Link to the Past truly begins. Next is the Palace of Darkness. Standing in what was once the Golden Land, Sahasrara tells Link that in order to save the Light World, he must claim the Golden Power. To do so, he must first rescue the 7 maidens hidden in the Dark World. In the Dark World, everything is an evil version of its Light World counterpart, with the Palace of Darkness mirrored by the Eastern Palace. Instead of ancient ruins, the pathway to the dungeon is a hedge maze, with a building housing a talking tree sprout. Shocked to see an unchanged Link, he serves as a warning against greedily coveting the golden power as he did. It was the same greed that always leads Hyrule into its never-ending conflicts. Taking the sprout's word in mind, Link continues navigating the garden. According to the strategy guide, the Palace of Darkness was once the home of an ancient Hylian king, who entertained his guests with its maze garden and even monkeys that resided there, which helps explain the giant simian statues. Maybe the king had 99 men fight one gorilla. It's also here Link meets the monkey Kiki, which unlocks the door to the dungeon after shaking us down for 100 rupees. Ignoring the monkey business, this would mean that the Palace of Darkness was in fact another Hyrule castle. It could have been built in the Ocarina of Time era when knowledge of the Triforce was commonly known by regular Hylians. The guide does go on to state that it was abandoned after Ganon's takeover of the Golden Land. Early on, Link does find one of the panels to communicate with Zelda. Here she reveals that she's held prisoner at Turtle Rock awaiting his rescue. Throughout the series, Zelda has always displayed innate magical abilities, having after all the blood of the goddess in her veins. The Palace of Darkness marks a point where dungeons become more difficult. To succeed, you'll have to take every lesson you learned in the Light World in order to save the 7 maidens. The boss of the dungeon is the Hellmouser King. Its name is a combination of the first half of Helmet and Saurian. Hellmousers are recurring enemies in the Zelda series, characterized by their masks and small statues. Unlike the rest of his kind, the Hellmouser King has a sharp tail Link has to dodge while striking his mask. Defeating him has Link freeing the first maiden. Every subsequent maiden henceforth will give a lore explanation, but our first one marks the location of the remaining 6 maidens across the Dark World, beginning the second half of Link's quest. The next dungeon is the Swamp Palace, its counterpart in the Light World being the Swamp Ruins. If Link tries to head north and cross the bridge, he'll find that it's been destroyed, so he heads south to where the swamp is. Unable to progress further again, Sahasrara teaches Link that the correlation between light and dark is more than meets the eye. By using the magic mirror to return to the Light World, Link is able to drain the water not only in the Light World, but in the Dark World as well. In the Light World, the swamp ruins were either used as Hyrule's sewer network, or as once a lake drained to access the Desert of Mystery, reinforced with the pathway of ruins scattered around the area. The Dark World also has its own set of ruins, but displays a more mocking appearance. To progress further in the Swamp Palace, Link will have to manipulate the water levels to swim over unmovable blocks. Thanks to a pair of Zor flippers bought earlier, Link is able to swim with ease. The Swamp Palace marks the first water dungeon in the Zelda series, though not as complex as later water dungeons. The greatest moment in the Swamp Palace is obtaining the hook shot, Zelda's greatest item. It's this item that the dungeon's boss Argus is weak to. Argus is a giant jellyfish surrounded by Argi. His name is a possible reference to Argus, a multi-eyed giant from Greek mythology. Meanwhile, its Japanese name strangely translates to Wart, with its defeat setting free the second maiden. What makes this conversation so important about the rest is that it marks the first time Ganondorf is name-dropped before his official debut in Ocarina of Time. The maiden explains that Ganondorf was once a leader of a group of thieves before stealing the Triforce, transforming into Ganon in the process. Despite this revelation, the maiden reassures Link that he is the hero destined to defeat him. Next is Skull Woods. Thanks to the hookshot, Link is able to explore the rest of the Dark World. The third maiden is imprisoned at Skull Woods. If we ignore the skulls layered around the forest, much like its Light World counterpart, Skull Woods is a fog engulfing the entire forest. In Hyrule, there's a saying that those who wander into the Lost Woods are doomed to be lost in the forest forever. On his way to the dungeon, Link comes across the Dark World parallel to Sanctuary. However, instead of a temple where the faithful gather, it was instead a cave where a swindler would give guidance at the cost of a fee. You see, in actuality, the dungeon isn't located above ground, but below ground, connecting to other parts of the surface. The dungeon item being the fire rod, my first instinct would be to burn the entire forest down. but in reality it's needed to open this giant insect carcass, which leads to the boss. The boss in question being Mathula, whose localized name is a tongue-in-cheek reference to Mothra from Godzilla. We don't know how Skyward ended up in its current state, however a theory of mine goes that Mathula and his minions took shelter underground, waiting to pounce on unlucky souls who wander into their domain. In the light world, the gang of thieves use the Lost Woods as their hideout, robbing Link if he gets too close. So if there's one thing we can learn from these areas, be careful when rescuing maidens in creepy forests. The third maiden in her speech explains that the only one who can defeat Ganon is a descendant of the Knights of Hyrule. During the imprisoning war, the Knights of Hyrule suffered heavy casualties. By the time of A Link to the Past, Link and his uncle are the remaining survivors who trace their lineage to said knights. If the hero is defeated, there is nothing to stop Ganon's conquest of both worlds. The next dungeon is Thieves Town. South of Skull Woods lies the village of outcasts. However, village wouldn't be the best description, as the only people who live there are thieves who rob each other and moblins who roam the streets. The only thing they do in the village is to waste your money and time at the casino. Ironically, it's the only home with someone living inside. In the past, it was a prosperous village until Ganon's evil saw its decay. The village of outcasts is similar to cities like Chernobyl, which were abandoned after a cataclysmic event, with even small pockets of people still living in the surrounding area. One of A Link to the Past's biggest lore mysteries is the mystery of the Golden Land Hylia. The term Hylian is nowadays used to reference the inhabitants of Hyrule. However, in A Link to the Past, the characters refer to them as a separate race altogether. One of the most distinct characteristics of Hylians is their elf-like ears, whereas in Twilight Princess, the people of Ordon Village have regular rounded ears instead. Bear with me, I promise this is going somewhere. To use another Lord of the Rings example, in the lore, Tolkien makes a distinction between the Númenóreans of Númenor and the lesser men of Middle-earth. The Númenóreans are said to live longer, are stronger, and possess certain magical powers. So if we apply that example to A Link to the Past, the Hylians of the Golden Land are in some way similar to the Númenóreans, while the Hylians of the Light World parallel the lesser men of Middle-earth. Both civilizations even undergo a cataclysmic event that leads to their downfall. In the center of the town lies a giant gargoyle statue. According to a talking tree, it holds a secret Link should investigate. When Link pulls on the statue, it reveals the entrance to the dungeon hidden right under his nose. Thieves Town, as it is formerly called, is a giant open maze filled with Zazaks. Zazaks are commonly seen in the Dark World dungeons. With that said, they are most likely part of the gang that used the village of outcasts as their base. After exploring more of the dungeon, Link uses one of the panels to communicate with Zelda. She warns Link not to be deceived by Blind the Thief. In the next room, Link uses his bombs to open a cracked floor. Carrying on, Link manages to find the fourth maiden in a locked cell of all places. Asking to be taken outside, Link doesn't fall for her trick. As in the room with the open sun, the maiden is revealed to be Blind the Thief. Way back in Kakariko Village, next to Saharasla's house, was the former hideout of Blind's gang. Blind, without a shadow of a doubt, traveled to the Golden Land to steal the Triforce. But when he arrived, he quickly became Ganon's servant. However, anyone with common sense knows that there is no honor among thieves. With half of the maidens rescued, Link, anointed as the last knight of Hyrule, is the only one who can save the world from the Great Cataclysm. Next is the Ice Palace. Floating in the middle of the Ice Lake, its light world counterpart is Lake Hylia. Lake Hylia has been one of Hyrule's recurring landmarks, sometimes inhabited by the Sea Zora. Its name originates from the goddess Hylia, who in the ancient past guarded the Triforce from those who sought to use it for malicious deeds. Ganon used his magic to freeze the lake, casting a storm cloud to keep the lake in perpetual snow. In the Dark World, the rivers are dirty and polluted, having a dark green appearance. In real life, dark green water can be caused by pollen or algae, the former possibly being the likely explanation. In the Dark World, Link is unable to climb the slippery walls. However, remembering that the Dark World parallels the Light World, uses a portal found in Lake Hylia's center island to arrive outside the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace is one of the most infamous dungeons in all of Zelda. Ice physics is one thing, but its length and linear design makes it A Link to the Past's worst dungeon, with a total of 8 floors descending lower and lower into the lake. Interestingly enough, the exterior of the dungeon appears to have been carved from a giant iceberg. It's unlikely the Golden Land Hylia did this, but when winter did come to Hyrule, they would wear funny hats like this. To return to what I said earlier about the dungeon's length, the reason why is the main puzzle of the Ice Palace is a block puzzle that'll have you flip a switch in order to backtrack to the room above the puzzle to push the correct block over the button. However, thanks to A Link to the Past's genius progression, players who obtain the Cane of Samara early can bypass the final step of this puzzle. Non-linear progression is why I hold A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time in high regard across the series. After completing the worst puzzle in A Link to the Past, the boss of the dungeon is Cold Stare. To anyone who's read the Divine Comedy, the ninth circle of hell is the lowest frozen circle where Satan is imprisoned, similar to Cold Stare being at the bottom of the dungeon. Cold Stare surrounds himself in a thick ice shell with normal weapons unable to damage it. What makes this fight interesting is that its weakness is the fire rod from a previous dungeon. Just make sure you keep Zelda's warning in mind to have green potions on standby. At this point, Ganon is close to unlocking the portal to the Light World. but by now Link only has 3 maidens left to go. The next dungeon is Misery Mire. Located within the Swamp of Evil, it is completely isolated from the rest of the Dark World. The swamp was once the desert of the Golden Land, but Ganon transformed it, sealing it away from the rest of the Dark World. There's even a sign that warns of no way in or no way out. However, similar to the Ice Palace, Link will have to enter via the Light World. To do so, Link must help the young boy located within the Forest Grotto. The young boy once lived in Kakariko Village, but his desire for the golden power left him stranded and deformed, reminiscing the days he played his flute with his father. Therefore, after Link retrieves his flute, he plays one final song before the boy is transformed into a tree, highlighting one of the main themes of A Link to the Past, of mankind's futile lust for power, that those who seek the Triforce for their own desires are ultimately unworthy to wield it. Thanks to the flute, Link is able to use a portal atop a cliff to enter the Swamp of Evil. The Swamp of Evil, as explained by a hermit, is perpetually cursed in eternal rain, though when Link uses the Ether Medallion to open the dungeon, the rain immediately stops. Very fitting that both parallel dungeons require a prerequisite item to enter. A cool fun fact is, if you're good enough, you can complete Misery Mire with only one key. Later in the dungeon, there's even a set of tracks Link can walk on, hinting that Misery Mire was possibly a former mine. Meanwhile, the Cane of Samaria, the dungeon's main item, is possibly a wordplay based on the ancient city of Samaria. Canes were used by ancient Hylians as another method to use magic. When fighting the boss, Vitreus, the Cane of Samaria is ineffective against it, as the Cane of Samaria's true purpose is to create blocks to solve puzzles. Upon rescuing the sixth maiden, she explains that while Ganon could not break the Wise Man's seal, he used Agonim as a pawn to send them to the Dark World. By now, Agonim's true motivations have become clear. The reason he wanted to break the Wise Man's seal was so his imprisoned Master Ganon could enter the Light World. Though never considering Link would get this far, the only maiden left to rescue is Princess Zelda. Next is Turtle Rock. To enter the dungeon, Link backtracks via the Light World to use the Quick Medallion to unlock the entrance. Turtle Rock is located at the easternmost point of Death Mountain. In the strategy guide, it said that the dungeon was built by the former inhabitants of the Golden Land, before it was taken over by Ganon. Hylians on their own are skilled laborers, however the mines could have been built by the Gorons. Thanks to their strong arms and immunity to lava, Turtle Rock is a perfect place to send a group of Goron miners. Since Turtle Rock is set inside Death Mountain, halfway through there's a segment where Link will have to ride tubes to find the correct path. I don't know about you, but I don't feel comfortable riding a tube over a pit of lava. Turtle Rock's item is the Meer Shield, allowing Link to deflect the beams of the laser eyes. The Meer Shield is a reference to the Greek hero Perseus, who was gifted the shield by Athena and used it to defeat Medusa. Similar to the previous 3 dungeons, the Meer Shield was not to be the boss's main weakness. Trinex has 3 heads, with 2 being weak to the opposite element it uses. Exactly like the Ice Palace, Zelda advises you to bring extra magic potions. However, at this point in the game, you should have enough rupees to afford blue potions. After freeing Zelda, she congratulates Link, affirming that from the moment they met, he is the legendary hero. Link and Zelda have always shared a close bond, bound together by the Triforce through time and space. Now that all 7 maidens are freed, Link is ready to enter Ganon's Tower to begin the final battle. The last formal dungeon of A Link to the Past, Ganon's Tower is where he spent ruling over the Dark World. When Link approaches the tower, the 7 maidens using their power break the barrier, allowing Link to enter the dungeon. One of the first things noticed are the statues of Ganon caressing the Triforce. Ganon's Tower is like every Dark Lord's tower found in fiction, like Barad-dûr or Vader's castle. Though he may have been defeated in the Imprisoning War, Ganon was still in full possession of the Triforce, building a strength in secret ready to return to the Light World. For a vast majority of the dungeon, you'll be exploring the basement before confronting Agonim at the apex of the tower. Inside are enemies who patrol the walls, with even the Light World bosses making a return. The puzzles here also put all of your accumulated knowledge in a final test. Ganon's Tower truly does live up to the moniker of Final Dungeon. Once at the top, Link and Agonim commence their final battle. Agonim will be split into 3 copies, with the real copy being the most opaque one. After a couple of rounds, Link is able to deal the final blow to Agonim. However, to Link's shock, Agonim is revealed to be Ganon all along. The explanation behind this is that since Ganon could not physically enter the Light World, he used his magic to create an alter ego to enact his plan in secret. Ganon and his previous form Ganondorf have been known to be powerful sorcerers, so an ability like this is not out of the realm of possibility. In a last-ditch effort, Ganon flees from his tower to the Pyramid of Power, where he and Link battle for the Triforce. Though not a technical dungeon, the Pyramid of Power is where the final boss takes place. It's also where Ganon hid the Triforce after coming into its possession. The strategy guide states it was built in honor of the King of the Golden Land, similar in purpose to the pyramids of our world. Hyrule's kings have historically been the ones to wield the Triforce to help rule the kingdom. In the manual of A Link to the Past, the Triforce is seen glowing up atop a pyramid, so it could have been the former resting place of the Triforce. In the normal ending of A Link to the Past, after dealing the final blow to Ganon, Link becomes the new guardian of the Triforce, wishing to restore peace to the world. However, if you're playing the GBA version of A Link to the Past, there's an extra dungeon in honor of Zelda Four Swords. Four Swords was Zelda's first attempt at a multiplayer installment. My guess as to why they included A Link to the Past was maybe they were unsure how successful Four Swords would be on its own. Either way, at the eastern side of the Pyramid of Power is the entrance to the dungeon. Off the bat, your goal isn't to find the big key and beat the boss, but to gather each of the Four Swords. The Four Sword is another sacred blade in the Zelda series, with its unique ability to split Link into 4 copies, each representing the 4 elements. It's unclear how the Four Sword ended up in the Dark World, given it should be at the Four Sword Sanctuary. That being said, gathering the 4 pieces involves solving puzzles with methods the game doesn't teach you. On top of that, the bosses are harder versions of previous fights. The most standout fight is with Blind 2, where upon entering the room, he tricks you by pretending to be Link's uncle. Once all 4 swords are gathered, Link enters the inner sanctum, beginning a boss battle with the 4 Dark Links. Each Link getting progressively more difficult, sporting some of Link's abilities, like the Ground Pound, Pegasus Boots, and Spin Attack. Dark Link has been a recurring enemy in the Zelda series, always with the purpose of serving as Link's shadow. The shadow self is an idea in psychology that represents the part of ourselves that we repress for the sake of it. To someone like Link, Dark Link represents his abilities being used for selfish ends, so it's a battle to see if Link can conquer himself. When all 4 Links are defeated, the credits roll displaying your quest data throughout the adventure. It's a very strange way to end A Link to the Past, though this dungeon exists as one final challenge to round out the game. One of my personal reasons why A Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game is that its lore and dungeons are my personal favorite in the entire series. For the first time in the series, each dungeon displays its own identity, constantly keeping the adventure new and fresh. However, more importantly, it created the Zelda formula we've come to love till this very day. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's the only way YouTube's algorithm knows I exist. Stay tuned for future uploads. Thanks again for watching.